What is going on, trainers? DrumVillain here, bringing you some more Pokemon Go PvP content, and today we're here to talk about the Little Jungle Cup. Now, the Little Jungle Cup is a new meta, it's a new cup for Season 9 of Go Battle League. It's never been in before, and it's got a whole new set of restrictions and limitations of what Pokemon you can use for it. So we're going to take a look at what the restrictions are for the Little Jungle Cup, what Pokemon you can actually use. We're going to take a look at the strongest Pokemon in this meta, which Pokemon are going to be performing the best, and maybe some spicier picks that I think are going to have good play that might fly under the radar. And then we're going to take a look at some team composition, some team ideas for you guys, for some squads that I think are really going to help you perform well in this cup, maybe catch some people by surprise, and also hopefully inspire you guys for some team compositions of your own. So taking a look at the rules for the Little Jungle Cup, which you can find on the Pokemon Go blog post, they've got it up there for you to find if you want to check it out for yourself. First is that the Pokemon have to be at or below 500 CP. This is the same as other little cups and the Element Cup that we've had before in previous seasons. Second rule is nice and spicy compared to previous little cups, and that is that the Pokemon do not need to be able to evolve to enter. Previously, for some other little cup factions, you could only use Pokemon that had an evolution. So you couldn't use Pokemon like Stunfisk because it doesn't have an evolution available to it, or you couldn't use Blastoise or Charizard because they can't evolve any further. But in this cup, you can use those Pokemon as long as they're within the CP limit. Now, the type restrictions for this cup is that you are allowed normal, grass, electric, poison, ground, flying, bug, and dark type Pokemon. And that means you can have dual typings, so you can have ground and steel types like Galarian Stunfisk. You can get away with water and electric types like Lantern if you wanted to, and Chinchou, even though water type specifically isn't allowed because they're part electric type, and that is allowed, you can use those Pokemon. And finally, there are two specific Pokemon banned, and that is Shuckle and Smeargle. Smeargle, I assume, because you can probably find an abusable moveset on Smeargle if you've got the right Pokemon to take snapshots of that can take advantage of this limited meta. And Shuckle, I presume, because it's got an absolutely monumental defense stat, and at this kind of CP limit, it will probably be really broken like Bronzor was in the original Little Cup. Okay, to take a look at some of the stronger picks for the Jungle Cup, we're going to head over to pvpoke.com, and if you've never used pvpoke.com, I highly recommend it as a resource for looking into teams, looking into Pokemon that you're thinking about using for Go Battle League. It's a fantastic resource, I cannot recommend it enough. From pvpoke, you're going to want to tap rankings, and this is going to bring up rankings for each Pokemon in each league. You can filter from different things, you can filter XL Pokemon and filter by league. So we're going to go to the Little Jungle Cup from the drop down list, and it gives you an overall ranking of all valid Pokemon for this meta and how good they stack up against each other. Now, as you can see, Cottony is technically the single strongest pick across all roles for the Jungle Cup. And that's no surprise, Cottony did very well in the original Little Cup, only really being walled hard by Bronzor or Fire types up there specifically to shut it down. Any meta that Galarian Stunfisk can get in, it's going to do well in, and it's obviously accessing this meta because of its ground typing, and obviously without steel typing being directly allowed to be used, steel types always do very, very well defensively, so any meta they can sneak into, they perform well in. Alteria's a solid pick. Again, these do have to be under 500 CP, which can be quite a problem for some of these Pokemon. Galarian Stunfisk, for example, unless you caught a Galarian Stunfisk and hung on to it from a previous event where Galarian Stunfisk was spawning in the wild, or if you hatched one from an egg when you were a very low trainer level, so that it's below 500 CP, you're not going to be able to get hold of one unless you know someone to trade one off of that's below that CP limit. So you might not see that many Galarian Stunfisks here in the Jungle Cup, but you never know what people out there have got, and you should be prepared for it, because if someone has access to it, they're probably going to use it. Interesting picks like Scrafty, obviously counter users without fighting being directly allowed in the meta. Anything that has access to counter is going to do very, very well. Vigoroth is also here down at slot number 20, obviously got very, very versatile coverage with counter, body slam, and then brick break, because these Pokemon are going to be a lot squishier than they are even in the Great League. So you don't want to have slow charge moves. Having moves you can get to pretty quickly and spam off, get those shields out of opponents are going to do a lot better. Skarmory showing up twice with both its regular and shadow variant, quite high up in the rankings, just because again, that steel typing is very, very powerful where it can get in. Swinub giving some very interesting coverage, covering some of the grasses, the grounds, the flyings, and the dragon types across the board thanks to that powder snow and icy wind and body slam spam. Swinub could be a very, very nice pick in this meta. Skorupi also putting in some good showing against a lot of popular choices. Now if we scroll back up to the top, you can actually tap between different roles on a team. So lead is the Pokemon that you both send out at the start of the match, and these Pokemon are ranked on how well they perform specifically in that role. So for this role, Ducklet takes the top spot, and we all know how good Ducklet was in the Element Cup. And again, Cottony, Galarian Stunfisk, Skarmory, Wigglytuff, a lot of these are Pokemon that can be quite awkward to deal with if you don't have the right answer to them. So they give nice broad coverage against most teams. Closes Pokemon at the end of a match, and Chansey for its absolute bulk is the highest rated Pokemon here, and especially if shields are down and it can make it to a stab Hyper Beam, that's going to annihilate a lot of Pokemon in the meta. Galarian Stunfisk again ranked up there at number 2, so very, very solid across the board in every role if you can get a hold of one. Again, Skarmory, Swamp, Altaria, Ducklet, a lot of Pokemon with hard hitting nukes and maybe like self debuffing moves such as Brave Bird present here. Also Pikachu Libre making a nice spicy showing. If you've got a Pikachu Libre from one of the previous seasons, maybe you want to take a chance and flex it here if its IVs are low enough to be below the 500 CP point. And also if we go over to switches at the top, these are the safe Pokemon, or the Pokemon that are the safest to swap to in general for this meta. So if you have a bad lead and you swap into a Skorupi, there's a good chance that with its energy lead, it can do well against almost anything that swaps in to meet it. Same for Swinub, same again for Galarian Stunfisk. Vigoroth has fantastic coverage against most metas. Shellmate, Farfetch, Spinder is a nice, interesting choice. You could surprise some people here if you've got that Icy Wind and Rock Tomb combo. Not many, I didn't know Spinder could learn those moves. Could definitely catch some people by surprise there. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is actually some potential teams that you guys could try running if you have access to the right Pokemon. And for that, we're going to take a look at the team builder section on PvPoke. And this is a very powerful tool that lets you build a hypothetical team with a hypothetical moveset and IVs, and you can actually judge how well a team is going to perform against the meta for that cup in particular. The first team we're going to talk about is a nice accessible team. You can easily get Vigoroth as there are Slakoths spawning as part of this current season. In Pokemon Go, Chikorita has often been widely available, and you probably have one built for the Element Cup if you were playing last season. Skarmory has had lots of events and times where it's been spawning quite plentifully in the wild, and it can nest, so you can go find a decent low level reasonable IV one if you want. Looking at the overview of the team, it's Bs for coverage, safety and consistency with just a low D in bulk, but bulk you have to take with a pinch of salt in this meta because it's 500 CP limit. Most Pokemon aren't going to be using their full bulky potential. There aren't that many tanks in this meta, so most teams are going to have relatively low bulk. As you can see, this team has pretty decent coverage across the meta. There aren't really any strong picks that can sweep the whole team. There are some that can give parts of your team problems where, let's say you run into a Skorupi on the lead, you're going to have to stay in because you cannot risk lining up your Chikorita with the Skorupi down the line. Things like that. But generally, you're not going to get super hard-walled by anything with this team. The second team we're going to look at is going to be Cottony, Chansey and Diggersby. Now, Cottony on the lead, and then you've got a normal type in the back to bait out a potential fighter, and then you've got a second normal type in the back to hopefully sweep the game. You can replace Diggersby with Galarian Stunfisk if you have one, but I didn't want to just make a bunch of teams that are all use Galarian Stunfisk because it's such a strong, versatile pick. I want to give you guys some different options if you don't have one below 500 CP, because I don't have a Galarian Stunfisk under 500 CP, and I'm not expecting you guys to as well. This team is very highly rated on the overview, coverage and bulk of A. Chansey and Diggersby are both incredibly bulky Pokemon, massive HP and defense stats. Safety and consistency are B because they've got solid coverage against the meta. And as you can see, there's not many things here that threaten the whole team. Pretty much anything that you're going to run into, at least one Pokemon on your team is going to be able to handle it. So you shouldn't run into anything that's going to absolutely sweep you away. Now, this team we're going to take a look at is if you have a Galarian Stunfisk that you can use for the Little Jungle Cup, which if you do, then I recommend trying out this team, and that is Stunfisk, Cottonee and Skorupi. As we saw, Skorupi makes a very, very strong save swap if you lose lead. Stunfisk has fantastic coverage on the meta, so it makes a very, very strong lead because a lot of the counter users, which are often the only things that can deal with a Galarian Stunfisk, will often be people's safe swaps in this meta in the form of Vigoroth. So as you can see here, the actual coverage that Stunfisk has over the top meta for this cup is absolutely nuts, and then anything that it does lose to, the other two can actually handle. The exception to this being Pyroar, that actually beats all three Pokemon on the team, but Pyroar doesn't win that hard. So Galarian Stunfisk will threaten hard with Rock Slides and Earthquakes. Also, Skorupi can put in a lot of work with Poison Sting. So a Pyroar isn't going to sweep your team, but you do want to keep Cottonee specifically away from it because Cottonee is going to struggle to take it down. Now, if you're fancying something a little bit spicier, perhaps you want to go for a Swinub double poison strategy. And this is going to be Swinub on the lead, Shadow, Golbat and Skorupi again in the back. Skorupi is a very, very versatile pick. You're going to see it on a lot of teams, so you're going to have to either be using it or be prepared to deal with it. Now, this team is not bulky. Shadow Golbat is incredibly squishy. Swinub is pretty average in terms of the meta, as is Skorupi, but as we've said, because the average is so offset thanks to super bulky picks like Chansey, the average bulk of most teams is going to be fairly low, but you can see great safety and consistency across the board. Now, this is a team that really doesn't want to see Galarian Stunfisk, but the main thing is to keep Golbat away from it. You run into a Stunfisk on the lead, you're going to have to stop in with the Swinub, do the Powder Snows, do what work you can. Same for Chansey, you're just going to have to wear it down over time. This is definitely going to be a more, it's a spicy team, and if you run into the wrong Pokemon, you're going to have a bad time, but also it's going to throw a lot of opponents off that aren't ready to deal with two poison types. Now, the last team comp I'm going to talk about here is going to upset some people, but it's going to be Wooper, Wigglytuff, Cottonee, and that's essentially Mudboy double charm. It doesn't have to be Wooper. There's a lot of other Mudboys that are viable, such as Wishcash, Swampert, Marshtomp, that are all viable in the Jungle Cup, and there's lots of other Charmers, such as Whimsicott, and a few others that you can pick for this meta, but I would say Wigglytuff is the strongest safe swap out of the potential Charmers. Cottonee can do quite well, Whimsicott can do quite well, and you can mix and match between them as you see fit, but I think Cottonee makes a strong closer as well. It's got reasonable bulk on its own for a Charmer. You can see the stats across the board are pretty high, pretty solid coverage, safety and consistency. And you can see Wooper doesn't do the best against the top meta. A lot of the Mudboys don't, but the main purpose of this team, similar to the original Caleb Peng Skarmory Double Grass, it's you swap into one of your Charmers to bait out their hard Charmer counter, then you take care of it with Wooper, and then your last Charmer can hopefully sweep the end game. So let me know, guys, if you're excited for the Little Jungle Cup, or if you're going to be sticking more to the Master League Classic this time around. You got any spicy picks that you think are going to put in good work in the Little Jungle Cup that you can't wait to try out and surprise some people with? Let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the content. If you're already subscribed, you're an absolute legend, and I'll catch you guys next time.